welcome to my live stream on the last day of August, August 31st. And today we're talking about A Wander in the Spirit Land, Part 4, Through the Gates of Gold. And we're doing Part 2. It's a long chapter, chapter 27. Welcome on our return, Part 2. So, again, I just want to talk, this is a wonderful book by a spirit, Franchezzo, talked to a Farnese, the medium. He never said any word about Spiritism, but what I want to bring is these older texts that follow Spiritism pretty well. I interpret this through Spiritism, and which is was brought to us by Allan Kardec in the 1850s, and more information is coming all the time. It was Leon Denis, then it was Chico Xavier in the 20th century, and others, of course, Ivan Piera, Devaldo Franco, who's still going today. So there's been lots of spiritist mediums who are bringing us more information and more books and more messages from the spirit world. There are spiritist centers around Brazil, where my wife and I have been. We've got messages from spirits. And so to me, this is very alive, very real, and more information and more complex information is coming to us all the time. And that information is here for us to look, read, analyze, and see how that affects our own life. That we're not, Spiritism doesn't believe in pushing anything on you. It's you take your own time, because after all, you are immortal. You've got eternity to figure out why you're here, what you're doing. Do you want to ascend? Do you want to just park? Meaning you just stay the same life after life. That's all up to you. But I'm just trying to give you this information for your own benefit. Okay, let's start on chapter 27, part 2. Let me bring this up here so you can read. I know people like reading it along with me, which I think is very valuable. Okay, so we left him off, and what he was going through is he wanted to improve more rapidly, because he knew that when his love of his life, who was helping him, she's still in the physical realm, when she passed over, she would be on a higher level than he would be. And so he could not, when you're at a lower level, you can't go higher, but the person on a higher level can go lower. And the reason you can't go on a higher level, because it's the higher you go, the higher the ratio of energy to matter. So you'd be more energy, less matter. And as you go lower, you're more matter, less energy. So she could come to meet him, but he could not go to meet her. And he wanted to improve at a faster rate. So he was told to go through like this desert, and he would be had visions of everything he thought he'd done wrong. And they let him do that because he had proven himself. He was pretty analytical, and he could look at himself from like the 10,000 foot level and not be emotionally defensive of what he had done wrong and go, yeah, I did that wrong. I need to improve that, which is a great state for all of us here on Earth, because really on Earth is where it's the best place to change your personality and your character, because that's where Earth is perfect to be the area where we're hit with emotional stimuli. If you're in heaven, things are nice, it's calm, you're with people like you because of the law of affinity. It's nothing that's forcing you to change your basic character and personality. You'll learn more, and of course it's still always available to change your character and personality, but as spirits tell us, it's much more efficient to take the opportunity when you're on Earth to try and become a better person and rip out those primitive emotions and replace those with advanced emotions: love, charity, fraternity, and honesty. Okay, so he's in the middle of this, and he's crying because he's seeing, like, oh my heavens, what I've done, and kind of like what I've seen for my own life. And then he said, and where my tears fell on the hot, dry sand, there sprang up around me little flowers like white stars, each little waxy blossom bearing in its heart a drop of dew, so that the place I'd sunk down upon in such sorrow had become a little oasis of beauty in that weary desert. I plucked a few of those tiny blossoms and placed them in my bosom as a memorial of that spot, and then rose to go on again. To my surprise, the pictures were no longer visible. Those were pictures of what he had done incorrectly in the past. But in front of me, I beheld a woman carrying a little child whose weight seemed too much for her strength, and it was wailing with weariness and fear. I hurried up to them and offered to carry the poor little one, for I was touched by the sight of its poor little frightened face and its weary, drooping head. The woman stared at me for a moment and then put the little one in my arms, and as I covered him over with a part of my robe, the poor, tired little creature sank into a quiet sleep. The woman told me the child was hers, but she had not felt much affection for it during its life. In fact, she said, I did not want a child at all. I do not care for children. And when this one came, I was annoyed and neglected it. Then, as it grew older and was, as I thought then, naughty and troublesome, I used to beat it and shut it up in dark rooms and was otherwise hard and unkind. At last, when it was 5 years old, it died. And then I died not long afterwards of the same fever. Since I came to the spirit world, that child has seemed to haunt me, and at last I was advised to take this journey, carrying him with me, since I cannot rid myself of his presence. So he met a fellow traveler in that desert, so so she too could encounter what she'd done wrong. So then he asked, "And do you not even feel yet no love for the poor little thing?" And she said, "Well, no, I can't say I've come to love it. Perhaps I shall never really love it. Oh my heavens, as some mothers do. Indeed, I am one of those women who should not be mothers at all. The maternal instinct is, as yet at all events, quite wanting in me. I do not love the child, but I am sorry now that I was not kinder to him, and I can see that what I thought was a sense of duty urging me to bring him up properly and correct his faults was only an excuse for my own temper and the irritation the care of him caused. I can see I have done wrong and why I did so, but I cannot say I have much love for this child." Oh, that's a tough one. I'll carry on. "And are you to take him with you through all your journey?" I asked, feeling so sorry for the poor little unloved thing that I bent over and kissed him, my own eyes growing dim as I did. For I thought of my beloved on earth and what a treasure she would have deemed such a child, and how tender she would have been to it. And as I kissed him, he put his little arms around my neck and smiled up at me in a half asleep way that should have gone straight to the woman's heart. Even as it was, her face relaxed a little, and she said more graciously than she had yet spoken, "I'm only to carry him a little farther, I believe, and then he'll be taken to a sphere where there are many children like him, whose parents do not care about them, and who are taken care of by spirits who are fond of children." And of course, that's true. Spiritism tells us that all children go to some part in heaven, and the fact that even children who are stillborn and children who die in the womb and children who just live a couple days in the physical world all go to heaven. Now, the interesting thing what they tell us about children is that the children who die without ever actually being exposed to the physical world, meaning staying in the mother's womb, is they have to be taken care of a little bit more special because they never experience the physicalness of our planet, and therefore they're a little bit different than the children who at least spent a minute or two on in the physical plane. And these children usually are more empathetic, very loving, and they're destined to do other type of work. Now, what that other type of work, it was mysterious because there was a passage in one of the spirits talking about the fifth level of heaven and saying that there are once you're in the fifth level of heaven, you can decide which of the three paths you want to go on. He never said what the paths are, what type of careers that means. So interesting. I know one of them was like a leadership type career, and the children that were stillborn and never had tasted the atmosphere of Earth probably weren't going to go on that path. So very interesting. There's a lot of things we don't know about the spirit world. There's hints. That's why you have to read these things a couple of times and just parse every sentence. And sometimes you can uncover these little bits. It's like reading the New Testament, Old Testament, especially New Testament. There's so much now when you understand Spiritism of what Jesus would say, and it's like, oh, he meant that literally when you think about what he said. Very, like let the dead bury the dead. Well, that was a parable or an allegory or whatever people think it was. It was like, well, yes, spirits will take the spirit, and if you deserve help, they'll help you into the spirit realm. The dead will bury the dead, although they're not really dead. They're actually more alive than we are. That's where we will stay. The majority of our immortal existence is in the spirit realm. Okay, let me carry on. I'm glad to think that, I said, and when we trudged on together for a bit farther, till we reached a small group of rocks where there was a little pool of water, besides which we sat down to rest. Presently I fell asleep, and when I woke, the woman and child had gone. I arose and resumed my way, and shortly after arrived at the foot of the mountains, which pride and ambition had reared. Hard, rocky, precipitous was the pathway across them. Well, before I carry on, let's talk about children some more. So, what's this? Okay, here's a question. Let me answer this. Please tell me, what does this mean? It happened to me. I was sitting down on the ground, and all of a sudden, I was like outside of my body, looking at myself. So let's take a minute to talk about that. So that is, now, when you are asleep, you leave your body and you can go to the spirit realm. The same thing you can do when you're awake. People will say, like, astral traveling. And people have done that because then you can actually leave your body and you can see it. Let me show this one. He says, it was white all around me, clear white. I was scared. Okay, that makes total sense. So here's a person who had an out-of-body experience during the daytime, probably. Yep, sitting on the ground. If you're sitting on the ground, I bet you were completely relaxed. You weren't nervous about anything. You let your mind wander. You were at peace with yourself and the earth. And then all of a sudden, you rose above yourself and you saw light. Now, first of all, why would you rise above yourself? Because we are just a physical body. So let me hide this for a second. Sure. So what you did is your paraspirit's connected to your body. Well, what happened is your paraspirit came out of your body for a little while because you were relaxed, and in your mind somehow, or you were drawn to it by a suggestion that you did not notice, but you were drawn to it, that your paraspirit left your body. Now, if you'd looked back at your body, you would have seen a small silver cord still attached from your paraspirit to your body. And in fact, if you had went billions of miles, that little cord would still be attached to your body because your body was still alive. When your paraspirit leaves your body, that's when you die. So then, let me do the next one. And I was telling myself, please come back, please come back. And then when I came back, my vision was so rapid and all image was shaky, then I could see again properly. So that is when your paraspirit, and you got panicky, which is absolutely normal. Like, what the heck is going on here? And if next time it happens, you stay cool and calm. You can think of where you want to go there with impunity and say, then you think, I want to come back, and you'll go back. People have done that. Some people can astral travel. I've never done that, but yes, it is entirely possible. So why was it white? Because you went to a place that was a higher spiritual plane than the earth. And the higher you go in the spiritual plane, the more bright is the light. So you went to probably a pretty high section because you saw all white, which is light. Now, it's not light like we have with the sun coming down and there's a shadow across our body. In the spirit world, light is all pervasive because it's the love of God. And the higher you go in heaven, the brighter it is. And in fact, that's why people see angels, because the angels reflect the love of God and they look really bright. They're not emanating that bright. They're actually emanating that light. They're actually reflecting the light, which is the love of God, and therefore they look fuzzy. If you were on the same level as that angel, they look normal to you. They look like with how they want to look in their perispirit. They look beautiful, of course, but they would look normal. So you went up to a point where it was very white, and in fact, it may have been so white it was a little bit uncomfortable. I'm not quite sure, because that will happen if you're a spirit on a certain level and you try to go up. You'll come. It would be so bright that you would feel uncomfortable trying to climb up that level. That's why in heaven, if you can wander anywhere you want to go on that level or below, but you can't go up. And then the higher you go, the more you free your terrain in the lower levels. And then, of course, then you came back to your body, and your perispirit had to relax again and completely connect to all the parts of your body, because your perispirit, this perispirit, it connects to every cell in your body, and therefore it just took probably just a moment. Um, I'm sure it wasn't very long, and then you just felt like you were back in there. But that silver cord will never get cut until you die. So you can go anywhere you want, and that silver cord was there. In fact, the silver cord was even referenced in the Bible. So I hope that hope that helps you. It was nothing bad. It was actually good. It was a remarkable thing. So you have some great talent there. I'm sure some people would be jealous. I'd love to do that. So, okay, let's get back where we were in the writing. Okay, I arose and resumed my way, and shortly after arrived at the foot of the mountains, which pride and ambition had reared. Hard and rocky. Like, am I in the right place, or did I go somewhere else? Just want to make sure I'm in the right place. Yes. Yes, I fell asleep in the child of God. Just want to make sure. Hard, rocky, and precipitous was the pathway across them, with scarce foothold to help one on. And oftentimes it seemed that those rocks reared by selfish pride would prove too difficult to surmount. Oh, let me just do this one more. I was worried what would happen if someone could have pushed me or smacked me on the head. Well, you would have known that, and you would have gone right back to your body. There's probably spirits around you. As soon as you did that, there are probably spirits around you, and you are at such a higher speed that no one, if someone had the intention that, let's say they were sitting like 3 feet away, and they even had the intention of doing that, you would have been notified, and you would have been right back in your body. That would not have happened. I think I said before, I knew a medium that said that spirits move at just like robots, is extremely fast. And in fact, one person had an NDE where they were gone from their body for 7 minutes. For to them, it seemed like 2,500 years. So there's no time. So to you, it could have taken a long time. So that what would not happen. Yes, while you were, yeah, someone could have smacked you on the head while you were in that state. No, you would have been notified. I'm sure when that happened, there were spirits around you, that your guardian angel knew that that event would take place, and that they were there. So anything like dramatic like that happens, your guardian angel sees your future. Right, the higher the spirit, the more they see what's going to happen in the future to you, even these small little details. So you would have been quite well protected. And he said, well, I was thinking I might go off or cuckoo. Yeah, I know. Very strange, especially if you had no previous knowledge of the spirit world, that this was possible, that you never read. It's like some people who are mediums, and I talk to a few of them, and they'll see spirits, oh, ghosts, right? And they're just like totally shocked. And yet, if they read about Spiritism, they read Allan Kardec's the Book of Mediums, that they would not be so shocked. And so that's why this knowledge is important to you, because if you have that ability, you may want to keep that ability, because then you could roam in other places. And then says, thank you for explaining this mystery. It happened 12 years ago, and now I know the answer. Okay. Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much. Much appreciated. Oh, my pleasure. See, it was not, it was a wonderful thing. In fact, I had that happen. Yes, I was out of my body. When I was, when I was 20 or 21, I was in a hotel in Greece on the island of Kos, and I laid down and I was all relaxed. And then I heard a dog barking far away, and then I hear the closer the dog barking, closer and closer, different dogs barking. I think this was more like what they call sleep paralysis, but I think more of a visitation by a spirit. And then all of a sudden I couldn't move. I couldn't move at all. And then the next thing I saw myself going like 3 feet the off of the ocean. I think it was the Mediterranean, and I was heading towards a really nice hotel on the beach with with umbrellas and chairs and all that type of stuff. And then I just fought and I fought, and then I was able to move again because I didn't know what was going on. So that so I can certainly, the same thing happened to me. Not the same. I think you were more of your own. I think mine was more of a maybe a spirit that grabbed me or something, but I'm not sure. But yeah, when that happens to you and you're not ready for it, it's like, wow, that's different. Okay, let me carry on. Okay, and as I climb, I recognized what share I had had in building them, what atoms my pride had sent to swell these difficulties I now encountered. Now that's a wonderful self-analysis, yes, because the Spirit's book tells what is what's the greatest fault in ourselves, and it's really selfishness and pride, right? And pride's a kind of a aspect of selfishness, and let's see. Oh, okay. So let me carry this one. See, to be honest, I came with this experience on a very hot day in the sun, and then I took marijuana, a really good one, and then it happened. So yeah, so somehow that interacted with you, and that drug made you feel completely relaxed. So relaxed, you were able to leave your body. Okay, let me carry on. Sorry. I like to answer people's questions. I know it's very important to them. So anyway, so I would like to say that, I was talking about pride and selfishness, and it's such a human attribute, unfortunately. And of course, being selfish and prideful, now we have to think about this. So we are, remember, as we're spirits, and we go into these smaller animals and organisms and so forth. Then we graduate to be a free-willed spirit, and we're a primitive spirit. So think about that. We are on this, we've been an elephant or a tiger or whatever, and then just eating what we want, attacking what we want, helped us live. Yet, yet, and so that helped us survive. And then we became a free will spirit. We kept those same attributes, those same characteristics. And as we were a member of the tribe, we tried to cooperate with other people, just like things that do that. And so, but you're still kind of prideful and selfish, and you want to be the top dog, the chief, and those type of emotions and being completely ruthless helps you survive. And so as the earth evolves and as we evolve, we have to take out these things. And that's why you have to analyze yourself and go, yeah, I mean, for those same emotions that help you in your more primitive instances are hindering you as you're trying to rise spirituality. Now, you can ask the questions, well, why do we have to go through that anyway? I mean, creating a foundation, we got to rip out and put a new foundation. All I can say is, I've never thinking about it, this is my own hypothesis, is that by doing that, we are even creating more and more different unique personalities, and that we are making even stronger the fact that we, with love and charity and fraternity in us is even stronger, knowing that we have seen, kind of like the opposite, and that it creates more uniqueness within the spirit universe. Because I believe that God wants a lot of spirits who are unique. He doesn't want a cookie cutter robot, right? Because if God wanted to, he could make us all perfect, and that would be very dull and nothing would ever happen. So I think that's why we have to go through that. That's just my opinion. That may mean nothing. Okay, here's another question. During your OBE, sleep paralysis episode, did you travel far from your body? If so, how far were you? I don't know. It must have been, for some reason, I thought I was in Greece, but for some reason, as I was going along the Mediterranean, I thought I was off the Italian shore. And I had no cognizant of that I traveled far, just that I was completely out of my body and that I thought I was traveling. So I'm not sure. Okay, let me get back to the story. So anyways, I was saying, this guy's good. He's analyzing himself, right? And so few of us know the secrets of our own hearts. We often deem that as far nobler ambition than mere self-aggrandizement, which inspires our efforts to place ourselves on a higher level than our fellow men who are not so well equipped for the battle of life. I look back upon my past with shame as I recognize one great rock after another to be the spiritual emblems of the stumbling blocks which I had placed in the path of my feebler brothers, whose poor crude efforts had once seemed to me only worthy of prompt extinction in the interest of all true art. And I long to have my life to live over again, that I might do better with it and encourage where I'd once condemned, help where I'd once crushed. And boy, does that also, I mean, that picks me to a T also, where in my younger days, before I learned Spiritism, if someone who I thought was incompetent, I was just ruthless. Like, oh no, I'll just walk all over somebody. And I have a lot to learn. And the other thing about being humble, ashamed, I should say. One time, Chico Xavier was just like, he was probably the most remarkable person who's been on earth since Jesus Christ. And someone who didn't really like him, but he went to the guy's house to try to talk to him. And the guy opened the door and says, Chico. And Chico always presented himself as this very nice person and humble. And he said, Chico, are you humble or ashamed? Because that person thought that Chico thought he was really, this top-notch person, but he was trying to appear humble. And Chico said, no, I'm ashamed, which is brilliant. It just shows you that Chico knew where he was in the great scheme of things. Yes, you may have been the most wonderful and powerful medium on earth, but you're on earth in a planet of atonement, in this little tiny planet, and with billions and trillions of spirits all around who are much superior to us. And therefore he knew that although he was part of our group, and I'm sure he knew that he was superior in many ways to us here on earth, but in the whole scheme of things, we're all nothing. And and we need to be like first graders who are a little bit ashamed of our own inability to think and count above 10, right? Or whatever number. I can't remember what we learned in first grade. Probably I would be kindergarten. So anyway, so it shows you Franchezzo was very good. He wanted to have his life live over again, that he might do better. Well, he will have that. He'll have that opportunity. And it's amazing how many people have their lives and say, I'm going to do better. And then they get into the physical life and they just go back with that flow of pride and selfishness again. And it just shows you how many people fail at that, and me included, right? Because I should have learned, I'm sure in my previous lives, that I should feel like Franchezzo. And yet in my 20s and 30s, I was not a nice person. Not that I'm nice now. I'm sure a lot of people say, I'm not, but I try to be. I'll carry on. I had been so hard to myself, so eager ever to attain the highest possible excellence, that I had never been satisfied with any of my own efforts, even when the applause of my fellows was ringing in my ears, even when I had carried off the highest prizes from all competitors. and so I thought myself entitled to exact as high a standard from all who sought to study my beautiful art. I could see no merit in the efforts of the poor strugglers who were as infants beside the great masterminds. Talent, genius, I could cordially admire, frankly appreciate, but with complacent mediocrity, I had no sympathy, and such I had no desire to help. I was ignorant then that those feeble powers were like tiny seeds, which though would never develop into anything of value on earth, would yet blossom into the perfect flower in the great hereafter. In my early days, when success first was mine, and before I had made a shipwreck of my life, I had been full of the wildest, most ambitious dreams. And though in later years, when sorrow and disappointments had taught me somewhat of pity for the struggle of others, yet I could not learn to feel true cordial sympathy with mediocrity and its struggles. And now I recognize that it was the want of such sympathy which had piled up these rocks so high, piled up high these rocks, so typical of my arrogance. That is a wonderful self-analysis and something we can all learn from. I'll carry on. In my sorrow and remorse at this discovery, I looked around to see if there might be anyone near me weaker than myself, whom it may not be too late to assist upon his path. And as I looked, I saw above me on this hard road a young man almost spent and much exhausted with his effort to climb these rocks, which family pride and ambition to rank with the noble and wealthy had piled up for him, a pride to which he had sacrificed all those who should have been most dear. He was clinging to a jutting out portion of rock and was so spent and exhausted, he seemed almost ready to let go and fall. So this is what pride and selfishness does for us, right? We're so proud of ourselves, we forget others. And if you just believe in one life and you see these, and you don't believe in the spirit world, and you don't believe that we're here for a purpose, then there's nothing wrong in being a complete jerk and exercising your strength, right? The old before Christ, or the old might makes right, right? If I'm really good, that just proves my superiority over you, and I can do whatever I want. Kind of like how our culture is today. If you're rich, that means you are the smartest kid on the block, even if you're not, right? And whatever you do, people are going to say, great job, or rich or famous, whatever. And that's why the Spirit's book says being rich is one of the hardest trials, because you can be a complete jerk and no one's telling you what they should be telling you. And that's why it's tough. And now here's Franchezzo saying, like, in his success and in his what he's done, he should have helped other people, and he should have been nicer. He should have been more constructive. And now he's looking to help people, which is great. It shows you how much he's grown. I'll carry on. I shouted to him to hold on, and soon climbed to where he was. And there was some difficulty succeeded in dragging him up the summit of these rocks, my strength being evidently double his. I was only too ready to help him, as some relief to the remorse I now felt at thinking how many feeble minds I had crushed in the past. When we reached the top and sat down to rest, I found myself to be much bruised and torn by the sharp stone over which we had stumbled. But I also found in my struggles to ascend, my burden of selfish pride had fallen from me and was gone. And as I looked back over the path by which I climbed, I clothed myself anew in the sackcloth and ashes of humility, and resolved I would go back to earth and seek to help some of those feebler ones to a fuller understanding of my art. I would seek as far as I could give them the help of my higher knowledge. Where I had crushed the timid, aspiring soul, I would now encourage. Where my sharp tongue and keen wit had wounded, I would strive to heal. I knew now that none should dare to despise his weaker brother or crush out his hopes, because to a more advanced mind they seem small and trivial. And that was a habit that got me, it's hard for me to get rid of, and I think I've gotten rid of it more and more, but especially in the Western culture of England, the English and the American culture of being just sarcastic, right? And sarcasm is not nice a lot of time to people who don't know you're being sarcastic. I mean, to your friends, it's no big deal, right? But not to do that to other people, because you're making jokes at their expense, and that's a hard habit to get rid of. It took me years to do that and to try not to do that. Sometimes I still backslide, but sarcasm, really, you need to think about that and try to uh, lessen that or erase that from your personality repertoire, because there's so many things wrong. Because being sarcastic means that you set yourself up above that person. You're not in sympathy with that person, and you're making fun of that person through an indirect manner, which is all fun when you're young, and you're stupid like I was. But it's a good idea to break that habit. Okay, I'll carry on. I sat long upon that mountain, thinking of these things. The young man who I had helped going on without me. At last I rose and wended my way slowly through a deep ravine, spanned by a broken bridge and approached by a higher gate, at which many spirits were waiting and trying by various means to open it, in order that they may pass through. Some tried force, others tried to climb over, others again sought to find some secret spring. When one after another tried and failed, some of the others would seek to console the disappointed ones. As I drew near, 6 or 7 spirits who still hovered about the gate grew back, curious to see what I would do. It was a great gate of what looked to me like sheets of iron, though its real nature I could not even now know. It was so high and so smooth, no one could climb it. So solid, it was vain to dream of forcing it. So fast shut, there appeared no chance of opening it. I stood in front of it in despair, wondering what I should do now, when I saw a poor woman near me weeping most bitterly with disappointment. She had been there some time and had tried in vain to open the gate. I did my best to comfort her and give her all the hope I could, and while I was doing so, the solid gate before us melted away and we passed through. Then as suddenly as I saw it rise again behind me, while the woman had vanished, and beside the bridge stood a feeble old man, bent nearly double. And yet as I was still wondering about the gate, a voice said to me, "That is the gate of kind deeds and kind thoughts. Those who are on the other side must wait till their kind thoughts and acts for others are heavy enough to weight the gate down, when it will open for them as it did for you, who had tried so hard to help your fellows." Now that, of course, so these are people who've gone through this kind of trial or this therapy, you might want to say, where they voluntarily went through this desert of looking at their past. And kind of like that woman with the baby, it didn't really seem to take as much as it should have, right? And therefore, those people thought they got through everything, really it hadn't been there yet, right? They hadn't gotten what they needed out of that. So they're going to give them some time. Let me send the drink real quick. Okay, carry on. I now advanced to the bridge where the old man was standing, poking about with a stick as if feeling his way and groaning over his helplessness. I was so afraid he would fall through the broken part without seeing that I rushed impulsively forward and offered to help him over. But he shook his head. "No, no, young man, the bridge is so rotten it'll never bear your weight in mine. Go on yourself and leave me here to do the best I can." "Not so, you're feeble and old enough to be my grandfather, and if I leave you, you will most likely drop through the broken place. Now I am active and strong, and it will go hard with us if I do not contrive somehow to get us both across." Without waiting for his reply, I took hold of him and hoisted him on my back, and telling him to hold tight by my shoulders, I started across the bridge. Saprastri, what a weight that old man seemed. Sinbad's Old Man of the Sea was a joke to him. That bridge, too, how it creaked, groaned, and bent under her weight. I thought we must both be tumbled into the chasm below, and all the time the old man kept imploring me not to drop him. On I struggled, holding with my hands as well as I could, and crawling on all fours when we reached the worst part. When we got to the middle, there was a great ragged hole, and only the broken ends of the 2 great beams to catch hold of. Here I did feel it a difficulty. I could have swung myself across, I felt certain, but it was a different thing with that heavy old man clinging to me and half choking me. And a thought did cross my mind that I might have done better to leave him alone, but that seemed so cruel to the poor old soul that I made up my mind to risk it. The poor old man gave a great sigh when he saw how matters stood, and said, You'd better abandon me after all. I'm too helpless to get across, and you only spoil your own chance by trying it. Leave me here and go on alone. His tone was so dejected, so miserable, I could never have so left him. And then I thought to make a desperate effort for us both, telling him to hold on tight. I grasped the broken beam with one hand and made a great spring. I swung myself over the chasm. With such a will, we seemed to fly across and alighted upon the other side unharmed. As I looked back to see what we escaped, I cried out in astonishment, for there was no break in the bridge at all. It was as sound as the bridge as ever I saw. And by my side there stood not a feeble old man, but Azarinda man himself, laughing at my astonishment. He put his hand on my shoulder and said, Franchezzo, my son, that was but a little trial to test if you would be unselfish enough to burden yourself with a heavy old man when your own chance seems so small. I leave you now to encounter the last of your trials and to judge for yourself the nature of those doubts and suspicions you have cherished. Adieu, and may success attend you. Now, look, so he had crossing this bridge, and so a higher spirit disguised himself as an old man to see if he would become selfless enough to help someone else. Think of that trial, and this happens in heaven. Now, trial happens to us all the time on the earth too. Here's another question. From Intercontinental 5, do you know anything about the ball of lightning or light phenomena here in the Fiji Islands? We usually experience it. The old people say that it's a spirit that comes to one who is alone. Well, I mean, there are instances in the physical thing of balls of lightning, which is just electrical energy. But as I'd shown before, let me hide this. This is what a spirit looks like. And it says, oh, then let me carry this one here. A ball of lightning, kind of yellow color, it just floats around or moving on our mountain ranges. So I would say if it's that far away from you, it's a physical phenomenon of electricity and energy. But if it's something small and you see around you, that could be a spirit. But to have a spirit that you can see far off in the mountain that's like floating around, I don't think that's a spirit. That's probably a physical phenomenon. So that's my opinion. I don't know for sure, but I think that's just a physical phenomenon, not a spirit, if it's like floating around a mountain range. Okay, let me carry on here. Where was I? Okay, so as I was saying, here was a oh, and it usually comes to spy on women who bathe after hours. Oh, now that okay, that could be a spirit, and it's not a high spirit because they would never intrude on people's privacy. So that could definitely be a lower spirit. And remember, spirits all around us. And I know a lot of people in cultures that believe in spirits and they can actually see them, and not mean that it's not their imagination, they just have the capacity to detect them. And you know, of course, in our culture, we think so much like, oh, ghosts and spirits, that's just, you know, you're primitive. Well, no, they're actually there. And you know, because I believe the same thing. I thought if you believe in ghosts, you're just hallucinating. But now, after I had my experiences, I know that's not true. So if they're intruding on and looking at you when you don't want to be looked at, and they're, you know, local like that, and you know, like you're taking a bath and you see this small little light around you, that probably is a spirit. That's not a ball of energy. And I was thinking, when you're talking about balls of energy you could see around, you know, in valleys and mountains far away, that's probably a physical phenomenon. But yes, I would say that is probably a lower spirit who is just, remember, spirits all around us. So you have no privacy. You may not see them. That doesn't, you know, they could be around you and you could not detect them. And also for Intercontinental, remember on Mondays, I have my whole hour-long live stream just to answer questions too. So, and I love people ask questions here too, but also I just want to say on Mondays you can actually ask more if you want. Okay, what was I doing? Oh, here's another one. So here on the island, they warn not to bathe late. Yes. Yep, that makes sense. But you know what? You might as well get used to it. You have no privacy. They'll see you no matter what. So, I would just say, go ahead. Okay, where was I? Oh, so anyway, I was saying again that you're going to have little tests all the time. Little tests of your patience, of your love, all of these things. And then don't be sad if you fail them. Just like, tell yourself, again, I screwed that up. And then say, nope, next time do better. It's not the fact that you succeed or fail. It's the fact that you improve over time. There's not going to be something like in movies where one event happens and all of a sudden you're a changed person. No, because even if it looks to us like you're a changed person, all these things have gone through in previous trials and episodes to set up, and that was just like, it was just the main fulcrum. It was just the main event to make that change apparent. Okay. So he turned away from me and vanished immediately, leaving me to go on alone through another deep valley, which was before me. It lay between two precipitous hills and was called the Valley of the Phantom Mist. Great wreaths of gray vapor floated to and fro and crept up the hillsides, shaping themselves into mysterious phantom forms and hovering around me as I walked. The farther I advanced through the ravine, the thicker grew these shapes, growing more distinct like living things. I knew them to be no more than thought creations of my earthly life. Yet seen in this life-like palatable form, they were like haunting ghosts of my past, rising up in accusing array against me. The suspicions I had nursed, the doubts I had fostered, the unkind, unholy thoughts I had cherished, all seemed to gather around me, menacing and terrible, mocking me and taunting me with the past, whispering in my ears and closing over my head like great waves of darkness. As my life had grown more full of such thoughts, so did my path become blocked with them till they hemmed me in on every side. Such fearful, distorted, hateful-looking things, and these had been my own thoughts. These mirrored the state of my own mind towards others. These brooding spirits of the mist, dark and suspicious and bewildering, confronted me now and showed me what my heart had been. I had so little faith in goodness, so little trust in my fellow men. Because I had been cruelly deceived, I had said in my haste, all men and women too are liars, and I had sneered at the weakness and the folly around me, and thought it was always the same thing everywhere, all bitterness and disappointment. And of course, that is, you see that all the time. There's a lot of projection going on. And you see that with people who are dishonest and corrupt. You'll see that in whole groups of politicians. And they will always accuse you of doing what they have done. Because after all, if they were in your condition, they would have done it. And you'll see that with so-called friends, right? You'll see that all sorts of places that people will project that what they would have done, that, they accuse you of doing, because after all, why would you be any different than them? So I'll carry on. So these thought creations had grown up mass upon mass, till now I sought to battle with them. They seemed to overwhelm and stifle me, wrapping me up in the great vaporous folds of their phantom forms. In vain I thought to beat them off, to shake myself free of them. They gathered round and closed me in, even as my doubts and suspicions had done. I was seized with horror and thought as if they had been living things that were sweeping me to destruction. And then I saw a deep dark crevasse open in the ground before me, to which these phantoms were driving me, a gulf into which it seemed I must sink unless I could free myself from these awful ghosts. Like a madman, I strove and wrestled with them, fighting as for dear life, and still they closed me in and forced me back towards that gloomy chasm. Then in my anguish of soul, I called aloud for help to be free from them, and throwing out my arms before me with all my force, I seemed to grasp the formless phantom and hurl it from me. Then did the mighty cloud of doubts waver and break as though a wind had scattered them, and as I sank, overcame, and exhausted upon the ground, and as I sank into unconsciousness, I had a dream, a brief but lovely dream in which I thought my beloved had come to me and scattered those foul thoughts, and that she knelt down beside me and drew my head to rest upon her bosom as a mother with her child. I thought I felt her arms encircle me and hold me safe, and then the dream was over and I fell asleep. So, I mean, he's describing practically a visual session of trying to completely rearrange your mind to vanish these negative thoughts, vanish these doubts upon your fellow man. No, I mean, you still can be realistic, but try to be trusting when things don't hurt you in any way. My mother always said, "Love many, trust few, and always paddle your own canoe," which I thought was, we still say that today, is try to love everybody. You don't have to trust them. Verify if something could affect you, and then make sure you take care of yourself, take care of others, but make sure that you get your own business in order. I'll carry on. When I recovered consciousness, I was resting still in that valley, but the mist had rolled away, and my time of bitter doubt and suspicion was past. I lay upon a bank of soft green turf at the end of the ravine, and before me there was a meadow watered by a smooth, peaceful river of clear crystal water. I rose and followed the windings of the stream for a short distance and arrived at a beautiful grove of trees. Through the trunks I could see a clear pool on whose surface floated water lilies. There was a fairy-like fountain in the middle, from which spray fell like a shower of diamonds in the transparent water. These trees arched their branches overhead, and through them I could see the blue sky. I drew near to rest and refresh myself at the fountain, and as I did so, a fair nymph in the robe of green gossamer, with a crown of water lilies on her head, drew near to me. She was the guardian spirit of the fountain, and her work was to help and refresh all weary wanderers like myself. In earth life, she said, I lived in the forest, and here in the spirit land I find a home surrounded by the woods I love so well. There's always something for everybody in heaven. She gave me food and drink, and after I'd rested a while, showed me a broad pathway through the trees which led to a home of rest, where I might repose for a time. With a grateful heart, I thanked this bright spirit and followed the path. Soon found myself before a large building covered with honeysuckle and ivy. It had many windows and wide open doors, as though to invite all to enter. It was approached by a great gateway of what looked like wrought iron, only that the birds and flowers on it were so lifelike, they seemed to have clustered there to rest. While I stood looking at the gate, it opened as if by magic, and I passed on to the house. Here, several spirits in white robes came to welcome me, and I was conducted to a pretty room whose windows looked out upon a grassy lawn and soft fairy-like trees, and here I was bidden to repose myself. On awakening, and of course, he went through a hard trial, right? He went through a hard time, and now the spirit world is just all-encompassing and genius. Is now letting him relax after his hard journey. In fact, you'll see these temples of health, where people who've traveled to the earth on missions, and spirits tell us, especially the spirits from heaven, going to the earth with all these negative thoughts and these dark auras is exhausting the spirits, and so they come back in heaven and they will have like water and music will help them regenerate themselves and to heal themselves from the stress of being on earth. So this is the spirit world is wonderful. On awakening, I found my pilgrim dress was gone, and in its stead there lay my light gray robe, only now it had a triple border of pure white. I was greatly pleased and arrayed myself with pleasure, for I felt the white to be a sign of my progression, white in the spirit world symbolizing purity and happiness, while black is the reverse. Presently, I was conducted to a large, pleasant room, in which there were a number of spirits dressed like myself, among whom I was pleased to recognize the woman with the child, whom I had helped across the plains of repentance and tears. She smiled so much more kindly on the child and greeted me with pleasure, thanking me for my help, while the little one climbed upon my knees and established them there as an earthly child might have done. An ample repast of fruits and cakes, and the pure wine of the spirit land was set before us. And when we were all refreshed, we returned our thanks to God for all his mercies. The brother who presided wished us all Godspeeds, and then with grateful hearts we bade each other adieu and set forth to return to our homes. So that is the end of chapter 27 until next week, which is actually perfect timing, 55 minutes we've been there. So a fascinating book. And of course, I have in the description below, I have a link to the PDF. It's free. And talking about PDFs, if you would like to learn more about the spirit world, I suggest you go to my my blog, Spiritism, nwspiritism.com, and you can download my book, Spiritism 101, The Third Revelation. It's just a summary, very quick, I think it's 100 pages, less than 100 pages. It's in PDF version, and it gives you a good summary of the main tenets and the basic, ideology, because Spiritism is a doctrine, it's not a religion. And it helps explain a lot. And then download that for free if you like. It's also in Kindle, paperback, and Audible, if those are your preferred ways of reading or listening. And in Kindle, it's 99 cents. And then if you wish, I would extremely recommend reading the Spirits book. Again, this you can buy from Amazon, but you can also click on the picture on my site, nwspiritism.com. Click on his picture, take you to the FEB bookstore. You can buy that there. And I actually think it's cheaper on that site than you can buy it on Amazon.com. But again, you can get it in PDF. You just type in Allan Kardec space PDF. And I got all of Allan Kardec's books on PDF. And real quick, for those who would like to do more of this, and here's other books. The Gospel, great book. There's actually 5 books, but I'm just showing 3 right here. The Mediums book, which is all about different spirits, different ways of mediums. You hear, you see, all sorts of psychography, everything. And the Spirits book. These are all available in paperback if you wish, but they're all available on PDF. And of course, on Mondays, at the same time I started this 6 Eastern time, so different time zones around the world, I will just do questions and answers. Just a completely free form. And lastly, I just want to say, this is a book. This is my last book I've written, which I've taken all my other 14 books, and I've tried to really go through and survey what is the spirit realm, what is the physical realm, what are you as a spirit, what are you in the physical world, why you're here, how you advance yourself, how the earth is moved from one level of planet to another. It gives you as much as I can figure out, right? I'm sure there's so much more that we don't know about the spirit world. I'm not saying it's the be all and end all, but I think it's much more specific than you ever see from other people channeling spirits or different religions. It's all kind of fuzzy. Spiritism, it wasn't me, but it's Spiritism and Allan Kardec who codified it, giving us the specific information that is actionable. You know what heaven is. You know why you're here. You know how to get into heaven. There's no mystery. You know you have multiple lives. You know that karma is real, and that if you do something here, right, for every action there's a reaction. It's not just the same. It's right on, and therefore you know that if you want a next life, next physical life, do as well as you can in this life. So anyway, I want to thank everyone for being with me tonight, and